We're back. Something apparently happened to the internet in the area, and then whatever happened to that fried our modem. I'm not a tech expert. And then we had to wait forever. But we are up and running again, and we're starting out with Rittenhouse.
That he's trying to get away, get him, things of that nature. And then so again, further inferencing from the things that I heard and experienced, witnessed earlier in the night, I thought that the defendant was an active shooter. And like I had mentioned earlier, anytime you add a firearm...
Now, this guy isn't necessarily the hero you wanted, but he is the hero you needed. Now, he's playing both sides of the fence. We are not going to watch over an hour of this. Most of you come here for just the highlights. But I will tell you that he has been very purposeful in his movements. He has been coached on how to behave on the stand. That's why you see him keep looking at the jurors to include them into his testimony. Makes them feel like they're involved. That way they'll be more apt to swallow what you're saying. But he's using very specific words. I thought he was an active shooter at the time. All this by itself says he no longer thinks that way, which is why he's not what you wanted, he's what you needed. Now, as he's giving this testimony too, because again, we're not going to watch the full day of it, he's covering his own ass because charges can still be filed against this man. And if they're not filed, then guess what else can be done? Civil suits. And I'm sure Rittenhouse is going to have a field day with those. He's going to make that kid in the red hat feel like an amateur.
Into the equation, like I said, the stakes are so much higher for somebody potentially being seriously injured or being killed.
Can we please pull up exhibit number 5? Exhibit 5. This is the BG on the scene video.
So you see he's doing his stress movements. He's wiggling, he's looking around, he's looking down. This is stress, which is normal being on the stand, even if you aren't the one that's being prosecuted. It's stress. Spotlight's on you, and people are expecting certain things from you, so perform.
Let's go ahead and play that. I'll be pausing here in a little bit. We just saw you come running into the screen from the right. You're just behind that figure in the white shirt. Before this moment, had you drawn your firearm?
No.
Where was it?
Like I mentioned at the beginning, I keep my pistol holstered in the small of my back.
But don't you have it in your hand at this point?
I can't see.
Okay.
Can't see from this video.
Did there come a time when you were running that you did pull your gun out?
Yes.
Why?
Again, in the moment, I thought that the defendant was an active shooter, having been not too far behind.
So there you hear the exasperation. You hear that breath. In the moment, he's looking away, he's looking down, avoiding all eye contact. How do I say this? He thought he was being a hero. He was chasing down an active shooter. People with your regrets, or as we see here, some shame, because it's very minute shame. It's more of the uncomfortableness of realizing stupid. Nobody likes to be made a fool. Nobody likes to be stupid. And when they have to admit that internally, it really messes with their mind, and you'll see it come in.
You mentioned I'm just about to come into the frame here. I had heard several more gunshots, and again, making inferences, the defendant was the only one with a large caliber rifle. I'd seen an individual jump over the defendant, and then the defendant heard 2 shots, and then from there I saw another individual use his skateboard to hit the defendant, or hold the defendant. Either way, individual had made contact with the defendant with his skateboard.
Again, not what you wanted, but what you needed. And he's going through it. They hit him with a skateboard. He's being attacked. He's literally describing the scene of a guy being attacked. We can all give a thumbs up to him telling the damn truth. And by the way, I would like to sit there and take notice that many of you and I have not seen, but kudos to the tissue people. Kudos to the tissue people. It's freaking American flag tissue box. And there's another one that I guess is the decorative one that's closer to the judge. But I swear, I think they put this tissue box here on purpose.
And then from there, I heard another shot. And then as we can see in this still, an individual, well, yeah.
Okay. I want to back up for a second, Mr. Grosskreutz, because we have other video that shows you pulling your gun out before those shots are fired. Do you remember specifically, were you intending, when you pulled your gun out, were you intending to use it?
I see a lot of movement from the other prosecutor over here, and he keeps rubbing his face. A lot of stress. That's all it is. It's just a whole lot of stress. And because we don't have really good, side-by-sides of watching them together to see what's really giving him all that stress, we could just say that whatever he's saying is really stressing the bald guy out. And Unicorn Man over here is completely oblivious because he is showing no signs of stress.
If I had to, I didn't draw my firearm with express intent of using it, but also being ready if I had to use it.
Let's continue the video for a little bit, and I'm going to pause here. Pause right there. We've already seen this video. There's an individual on the left who had been shot at twice by the defendant. Then the defendant is there on the ground, and there's another individual between the defendant and you, Anthony Huber, who has been shot in the chest at this point. And that individual to the right of Mr. Huber that's sort of crouched over, that's you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you witness the defendant fire 2 shots at that man on the left?
I did.
Did you witness him fire a shot into Mr. Huber's chest?
I did.
So when you come upon the defendant at this point, do you recall what you were holding in your hands?
I do.
What were you holding?
In my right hand, I had my Glock pistol, and in my left hand, I had my cell phone.
What was going through your mind at this particular moment?
That I was going to die.
Let's continue the video for just a second, please. Pause. There's a time in this video when you appear to hold your hands up. Do you know about that? Do you recall that?
I do.
Why did you do that?
After Anthony Huber was shot, you can see in the video I'm not too far behind him. And the defendant had, after murdering Anthony Huber...
The objection is sustained. That whether the death of Anthony Huber was caused by murder or not is for you jurors to decide and not for the witness. So please keep that in mind. That people, when they're in the court and they're testifying, they can be affected by their emotions, sometimes by their jobs, and they will, for someone who comes into a physician, for example, with a gunshot wound, may be identified as a victim, and that's the language that they speak in the hospital because the person comes in with a gunshot wound. Here in the court, where the issue is yet to be determined whether someone's a victim or not, and it's to be based on the evidence presented in court, and it's a decision to be made by you jurors, not by a witness, not by the judge, not by the prosecutor.
So as the judge speaks, our unlikely hero is not giving a positive head shake. He's staying pretty silent in his mind. So obviously he doesn't really agree with what the judge is saying, but he is listening respectfully. And again, this is why he is the hero you needed, because the truth alone exonerates Rittenhouse. And that's all we needed. Not what you wanted, just what you needed. Now that we've done the unlikely hero, let's move on.
Hey, your job isn't to be in the streets. You gotta stay on your property. That's why you got problems already with people.
So you see him pulling a dumpster out of the road, right?
Correct.
And you'd agree on normal situation, a dumpster's not supposed to be in the road?
In normal situations, yes.
And you hear somebody telling him, hey, that's not your job. You're not to do that, right?
That is correct.
He doesn't react to that person at all, does he?
No, he does not.
He doesn't threaten that person in any way?
No, he does not.
He doesn't point his firearm at that person?
No, he does not.
To be fair, he ignores that person, doesn't he?
I think that's a fair way of putting it.
Okay.
I sit there and I know we can't see a whole lot from this, but this is the best example that I've seen about that whole head turning to the jury. See, he's trying to interact with the jury when it's something that he really wants or he's trying to convince them of. This particular instance, it's in a lot of words, the admittance that this kid wasn't an aggressive person, that he had a very calm temperament and apparently extremely patient. Now, the hero that we don't want but need, because he's telling the truth and he's not trying to manipulate you with words, admits to all of that. And he's not real proud of it because we don't see arrogance on the stand. Not even him trying to hide arrogance. It's just not there. We just see somebody on the stand trying to save their own butt because there's going to be an aftermath. There are bad things that he witnessed and did that his mentality was probably with the person fussing at him over a garbage can in the road. And that is when you see him avoiding the jury because he is involved. But he's not going to ad-lib or lie about it.
In terms of the next time you really see him is your contact with him on Sheridan Road after the shooting of Joseph Rosenbaum, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you were asked, were you armed with a firearm? And you said that you were, right? Mr. Binger said, what do you bring? And you said, keys, wallet, whatever else, and a gun, right?
I did say that, yeah.
Kind of standard operating procedure for you out in the summer of 2020?
Not just the summer of 2020.
Oh, so you had carried your firearm at times previous to that?
That's correct.
And you're doing that for personal protection, correct?
Correct.
And you're carrying it concealed, are you not?
That is correct.
It's unlawful for you to carry it concealed. Is that not true?
Unlawful?
Yeah, you can't carry a concealed weapon without a CCW permit, right?
That is correct, yes.
You have to open carry. You have to have, been talking about people with their guns out, you have to carry it with it out if you don't have a CCW permit, right?
That is correct.
And you didn't have a CCW permit, did you?
I did have a CCW permit.
It wasn't valid, correct?
After the fact, yes, I found out that it was not valid.
So, have you been charged for unlawfully carrying a firearm?
No, I have not.
So you're carrying a gun for protection in your, if I have it right, back here, right?
That is correct.
And I'm motioning into my kind of my belt area.
Correct.
Okay. Now, your first contact with Mr. Rittenhouse, I think you had testified that you believed that he said to you that he was going to the police, or that he was working with the police, right?
That is correct.
Well, on your statement on the 26th, which is the first statement you gave to law enforcement, right?
Correct.
You told law enforcement, I heard the guy say, quote, that he pulled the gun on me first, unquote, right?
That is correct.
So you never say to the police during your interview, he told me he was working with you guys. You never tell them that, do you?
That is correct.
So When you make contact with Mr. Rittenhouse, tell me if this is fair. And I'm not, Mr. Binger's asked witnesses to do this, so I'm going to ask you to do the same. You've probably watched videos, you've probably seen all this. I'm asking you to put yourself back there at that time, okay? You know shots are fired, right?
Correct.
Okay. And the only information that you have is Mr. Rittenhouse saying, according to you, he pulled the gun on me first, right?
Correct.
And based on that, you believe there's an active shooter.
Not solely on that, but yes.
You don't have any information, correct?
I had minimal information.
And in fact, what he says to you was, I'm going to the police, correct?
That is correct.
And he's running toward the police, isn't he?
That is correct.
Okay. So what you, and tell me if this is right, you have no idea what happened with Mr. Rosenbaum, do you?
Apart from, no.
I'm just,
No.
on that day.
Correct.
Okay. And he tells you he's running, and he tells you, I'm, whatever he tells you, I'm going to the police, or what you think is, he pulled the gun first, and he's running away from you, right? He's running north on Sheridan Road. Yes?
Correct.
And he's running away from where you're standing. True?
Correct.
You at that point pull a firearm out from your belt and begin to chase him. True?
That is not true.
I want the picture. I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 35. You take a peek at that for a second? That's a picture of you, is that right?
On the right-hand side with the blue cap and... Yeah.
You can look there where
Yeah.
this is you, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you're digging into your waistband in the back, are you not?
Yes.
That's where your gun is located, is it not?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you see Kyle Rittenhouse in this picture?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. So, if we can be fair here, this isn't him, right?
No, it is not.
And you don't believe that's him?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. And you'd agree none of these other people are him either?
I think that's a fair thing to say, yes.
Okay. What do you think, to the best of your ability, how far that guy's ahead of you?
It'd be hard to tell, but based on what I can see here, maybe 30 feet.
Okay. So,
And that's why I like this. He literally thinks it out. Let me think. 30 feet, I guess. He's not trying to sugarcoat it. He's being honest. Probably the most honest he's been prior to this day in his life. Suing for $10 million. Oh, I didn't have a gun. The hero you need, not what you wanted. Now Unicorn gets in trouble.
He knows he can't go into this, and he's asking the questions. I asked the court to strongly admonish him, and the next time it happens, I'll be asking for a mistrial with prejudice. He's an experienced attorney, and he knows better.
Now Unicorn is trying to feign ignoring by flipping through pages, which you can see that he has giving no time to read. He's just flipping through them to give the illusion that he's not listening.
Mr. Binger?
First of all, Your Honor, this was the subject of a motion.
And then he's being even more disrespectful to the judge by not facing the man as he's asked him to respond, but he's going to dig through papers and pretend to read.
well aware of that, and the court left the door open.
Now, I'm going to give you my full attention on my time, sir. Pick up these papers that I wasn't reading at all and turn and face you from a sideways glance, because I am the OG.
For me, not for you.
Which is why the judge snapped, because he's a disrespectful little cretin. Oh, there's the other tissue box. I can't read it, and I don't recognize the symbol, so I can't honestly say what it is. I just find it funny with the American flag tissue box. So he's been admonished, yelled at, snapped at. He shuts up right away, puts the paper down as if he does not care, but his whole body is now stiff. He barely moves the torso neck area because he's trying to feign, I am the OG, the quiver in his voice, and goes back to his podium.
My understanding of
You should have come and asked for reconsideration. You did on the one motion, and in fact,
So then you see the judge, you should have come, and he quivers. He starts to stop, okay? Now, I don't know, obviously, the ins and outs of the courtroom, but all of a sudden, the judge tries to take back the anger and calm it down. And because he's still angry, his brain isn't thinking quite right.
in fact, I granted your motion for reconsideration.
That was not a motion.
And then you see this. He's stopping. He's misspoken. He's going to correct it. And he's going to try and force himself to slow down and calm down from the adrenaline rush.
That's not, excuse me. I did. I granted.
We did not move
That
to
was
reconsider.
their motion.
We have not filed any motions to reconsider
Forgive
in this
me.
case.
That was their motion for reconsideration, which I denied. But I said
So Unicorn tries to correct the judge as the judge speaks.
I denied it, or I indicated a bias towards denial is what I did. Held it open with a bias towards denial. Why would you think that that made it okay for you, without any advance notice, to bring this matter before the jury? You were...
So Unicorn Guy doesn't open his mouth, does not answer the judge. Probably got a dumbfounded look on his face, but we can't see it. And as you see, the judge now has a train of thought of justified anger.
I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, well, I'll leave it at that. So I don't know what you're up to.
May I respond?
Yes.
May I respond? And he's interrupting the judge again. I don't know what you're up to, the judge says. And you see that little twirl of the head. He kind of knows. He's got an idea. I don't know what it is, but his body language says he has an idea of what it is or what it leads to. And then Unicorn Man with his attitude.
We filed an other acts motion on this exact issue because, in my mind, and I argued this, it is identical to what was going on the night of August 25th, in the sense that the defendant was using this exact same weapon. He was using it in a manner to try and protect property.
No, he wasn't.
Your Honor, with all due respect...
I'm not going to rehash the motion. That's absolutely untrue. No. Your argument's of record. My comments are of record, and why I ruled as I did is of record. There's nothing that I heard in this trial to suggest anything's changed. Even if you're correct in your assumption that you know more than I did at the time, you should have come to the court and say, I want to go into this. Why you would think that you could go into it without any advance notice to the court, I don't understand that. And as the defense is pointing out, you're an experienced trial lawyer, and this should not have been gone into.
Your Honor, there have been things in this case, testimony in this case, that I believe opens the door to this. For example, the defense has introduced evidence that the defendant pointed a gun at a man wearing yellow pants because that person was on a car on the car source lot. Now, there's no justification that I can think of why the defendant would point that gun at someone. The defendant has just testified this.
His defense attorney's like, no, I can't verbally say it, but no. I'm sure the judge sees him.
Morning, that he agreed with that person in the yellow pants, that he pointed the gun at him. He said, I was joking when I said that to the guy in the yellow pants, but he said, he's acknowledged that he told the person in the yellow pants, yeah, you're right. I did point a gun at you when you were sitting on a car.
He said, I did. That's what he
Exactly.
testified.
So he's agreeing. May I finish, please? I'd like to have a chance to make a record if I could, without being interrupted, if that's okay.
He's just mad at the guy in the back shaking his head no.
He has mentioned that he's acknowledged that he's used this gun to protect property. He's also just acknowledged that he knows he can't do that. I am attempting to impeach him now with the prior August 10th incident, 15 days prior, involving the same gun, where he is threatening to use that gun to protect property.
He didn't have the gun with him.
Your Honor, he is saying he wished he did so he could shoot people.
You know, there's a lot of difference between commenting about something when you haven't got a gun and threatening someone when you do.
You know, it's interesting, Your Honor, because the entire defense theory in this case is Joseph Rosenbaum, who was unarmed.
I want you to tell me what the defense theory of the case is. I want...
May I respond to what you just said, Your Honor? I'd like to respond.
That look on the judge's face. I don't know about you, but I do believe there are things that the judge can do to disrespectful people in the courtroom. I think it involves jail time. And I think this guy is really close to getting it.
Respond to what you just said.
Slow down, please.
I apologize, Madam Court Reporter, but I'd like to try and make a record without anyone interrupting me, if that's okay. I believe that there is a central part of this case that Mr. Rosenbaum is making threats that he has no ability to carry out. So, to your point, Your Honor, you're arguing that this August 10th incident...
By the way, at this point, the judge, because his face is no longer moving, it's just that hard face, he quit listening. There is now not listening to respond. It is now just quiet for him to hurry up and shut up.
One aspect of why you don't believe it's relevant is the defendant didn't have the gun with him. This case is about someone who didn't have a weapon, and yet the jury is being told because of those threats, that means the defendant has to defend himself. So, with all due respect, Your Honor, mere verbal threats have already been shown to this jury and used as a basis for someone's subsequent actions. I am attempting, with the defendant, to use his mere verbal threat on August 10th, 15 days prior, that he's going to shoot shoplifters with his AR-15 to impeach the defendant in a murder trial. I would ask the court's forbearance to do that. I apologize, Your Honor. You're right. I probably should have brought this to your attention earlier. I may have misunderstood your ruling, because I thought your ruling was if the evidence in this case made that more relevant, you would admit it or at least consider it an admittance. I believe, based on the evidence that we've heard, and more specifically, exactly what the defendant said earlier about admitting pointing a gun at someone who was merely jumping or sitting on a car, that the door is open now to this testimony. And I continue to believe that his state of mind, his intent, his belief as to self-defense is the core of this case. That was the basis for my motion. You were strongly inclined against it. I understand that. But now we're in the middle of trial, and there's been a lot of evidence that's come in that I think makes this relevant. So I'm attempting to impeach the defendant on his beliefs. I believe I'm entitled to impeach the defendant on his beliefs and on his statements.
I'm going to interrupt you now because you're talking about his beliefs. I think that's what they call...
His statements too, Your Honor. Because he just said, can't use deadly force, can't threaten to use deadly force to protect property.
Man, this has got to be the most painful thing to listen to. I hope you were freaking pushing the speed button through this. It's taken everything I have just to slowly go through this. Oh my God, this is why body language is so boring. Because when it comes to lunatics like this, literally takes all the time in the world to get through the ridiculousness that's pouring out and then go, all right. So this windbag, because body language takes time, takes all this time to have word salad about something he has no right to do. And because the judge has had enough, he goes, all right, I'm going to interrupt you. Because the argument was lost a long time ago. He didn't have a weapon. There shouldn't be an argument about it. But let me speak. I got to finish my point of the point that doesn't fucking matter because the damn gun was never involved in the first place. And everybody's had enough. You've got the bald guy rubbing his head. He's like, Jesus Christ, we got to listen to this? The other defense lawyer is just zoning out. And the judge is like waiting for that opportunity of, I wonder if I can interrupt him now because he still is not making an actual argument. He's just trying to now word salad his way into proving himself right. And Mr. Cocky there, leaning on his little podium, has one more point to give.
So now I'm impeaching him on that.
Your Honor.
I'm gonna shake my head. Yeah, I see. If you let me finish, I can tell you everything. Now the defense attorney gets to speak.
The court has seen no reason to change its ruling. And just so this record is clear, in spite of the lengthy statement by Mr. Binger.
The lengthy statement. But if I throw more words in this pile, I'll convince you.
Before we started today, the court specifically stated in Mr. Binger's presence, there's been nothing to have me change any of my rulings. There have been numerous occasions during this trial where they've opened the door. The one time when they're going into Mr. Rosenbaum's prior, the reason he doesn't like guns, and I said something, I whispered in Mr. Krause's ear, it's because of the prior convictions. Please stop, and he did. He knows if you're going to go into something that's been excluded in a pretrial order, you better ask the court, you better get permission. This is ridiculous.
It wasn't excluded, Your Honor.
You know why it was excluded in the first place? Because it was propensity evidence. That is exactly what 90404 is designed to prevent. You're talking about his attitudes. His attitude is he wants to shoot people. Now, I've admitted that kind of evidence in other trials when it's been appropriate. I didn't admit it in this case because, to me, what I've heard in this trial, and by the way, Mr. Richards absolutely correctly points out that just hours ago, I said I had heard nothing in this trial to change any of my rulings. So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the defense
Don't
testimony.
get brazen with me.
I love it.
You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that. That's number one. Number two, this is propensity evidence. I said at the time that I made my ruling, and I'll repeat again now for you, I see no similarity between talking about wishing you had your AR gun, which you don't have, so that you could fire rounds at these thought to be shoplifters, and the incidents in these cases, which are not, there's nothing in your case that suggests the defendant was lying in wait to shoot at somebody or reflecting upon the shooting for a vast amount of time. Every one of the incidents involves matters that involve seconds in time. So I commented at the time, I don't see the similarity, and I don't see the similarity now. If it's not similar, that's the whole rule. Those are all the exceptions to 90404.
So as you just saw from the prosecutor there, he's now rolling his eyes and falling asleep. He don't want to listen to the judge anymore. Now the judge is having to repeat himself. So the prosecutor is now rolling his eyes. You see that mouth movement, the eye movement. Now he's turned his brain off. And it's because the judge is repeating himself. Why is the judge repeating himself? Because the prosecutor, in his long-winded, I've got another point, I'm not done with my point yet, to convince you to do it his way, because he did hear the judge. But the facts didn't move him to shut up. So the judge is repeating himself, which has bored the prosecutor. At least everybody gets to have a bored moment today. Now this one tore me up inside to watch. But I see a lot of things from the left. He has no tears. It's fake crying. And they're half right. But what are they half right about?
I step towards the Duramax, and as I'm stepping forward, I believe his name is now Joshua Zeminski. He steps towards me with a pistol in his hand, and as I'm walking towards to put out the fire, I drop the fire extinguisher and I take a step back.
Okay. When you step back from Mr. Zeminski, what's your plan?
My plan is to get out of that situation and go back north down Sheridan Road to where the car source lot number 2 was.
So we hear now, and I believe that what we're about to see, and it is actually occurring now, is PTSD. He's breathing really hard. When his arms come up, they don't move back down, and they don't go through the motions as the mind travels. They actually stay kind of stuck on this one subject. And you'll see it. It's like, we go back and look.
Is to get out of that situation and go back north down Sheridan.
Stay out of that situation, and the hand stays up. It's slow. It's slow and moving, which means the brain is slow and moving. And then it moves higher, pointing in the direction, supposedly where he's going. And it's slow in that mindset as well. It doesn't move very quickly. It hesitates just to get away. And then the body brings the arm back together in that speedy moment. Yes, I want to get away. I want to get out of this situation. Now, it's not just the incident that would give this kid, because he's a kid, PTSD. There's a whole range of things. There's that night where everything bad happened that then led to being put in a jail cell with real criminals and then having to live in that nightmare. And then on top of it, the GoFundMe things taken away. Anything and everything to destroy your life is being used against you. And now you're on trial that he understands is going to determine the rest of his life. There's a whole lot of post-traumatic stress, and he's going to have that disorder. And unfortunately, he's still going through that stress part. So it should be CTSD.
Road to where the car source lot number 2 was.
And did you get back? Were you able?
All right, now we see the definitive of this. And this is, the picture isn't that great, but the neck muscles come through and they're starting to tense up to the point where he can barely talk. And you'll hear that here in a minute as he continues. He's like, comes through. If he were to actually speak at that very second, nothing would come out. He'd be squeaky. So as those neck muscles are starting to react to the PTSD, his body is reacting. It's getting tight. It's going to be very hard for him to move. It's going to be very hard for him to really do anything. And that also closes off those little tubes in the face that feed those tear ducts. And you become dry mouth and your eyes get dry.
Able to go in a northerly direction?
I wasn't.
Describe what happens.
Here it goes again, stress, and then he doesn't get to stop. He's got to continue speaking.
Take that step back, I look over my shoulder and Mr. Rosenbaum,
He's trying to swallow. The neck muscles are still tightening up on him. The body is in slow movement. The brain is stuttering.
Rosenbaum was now running.
And you hear it running. Brain stutters, body stuttering. Muscles are tensing up.
From my right side, and I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski, and there were
now you hear that. That's that throat cutting it off.
There were 3 people right there.
Take a deep breath, Kyle.
That's what I run.
We're going to just take time for our break anyway. You can just relax for a minute, sir. We're going to take a break about 10 minutes, and please don't talk about the case during the break. Read, watch, or listen to any economy trial.
That is very telling. I won't comment on it, but there are angels in that courtroom.
If you'd like to learn more about analysing body language, there is a video course available on Mandy's website for Gold subscribers, where Mandy teaches more about her techniques of deception detection. There's also other content such as the Crime series and Interesting Minds series, available to both Gold and Silver subscribers.
If you like it, please share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.